He was ridiculed for his hair, laughed at for his theories, dismissed by scientists, mocked across the internet. But while the world rolled its eyes, he quietly built an empire. Giorgio A. Tsoukalos didn't just believe in ancient aliens. He made the entire world listen. From college classrooms to late-night radio, from obscure bodybuilding contests to international TV stardom, he transformed a fringe theory into one of the most watched shows in History Channel history. And when the internet tried to make him a joke, he turned that meme into millions. How did a man with no archaeology degree become the face of a global phenomenon? How did a single book from his grandmother spark a journey that would defy academia and reshape pop culture? This is the untold story of Giorgio Tsoukalos, the man who made us ask, what if we're not alone? And never were. In the quiet Alpine town of Lucerne, Switzerland, a young boy was about to receive a gift that would shape the rest of his life. Not from a teacher or a scientist, but from his grandmother. Born on March 14th, 1978, Giorgio A. Tsoukalos grew up surrounded by the strict discipline of Swiss education and the deep cultural myths of his Greek heritage. But while other kids spent their days learning fractions and grammar, Giorgio was gazing at the stars, wondering what lay beyond them. It was during one of those curious childhood moments that his grandmother handed him a book. Its title was Chariots of the Gods by Erich von Däniken, a controversial work filled with provocative theories about ancient aliens, lost civilizations, and the possibility that humanity was never truly alone. For most children, it would have been a confusing or forgettable read, but for Giorgio, it was a revelation. The book planted a seed of wonder that never stopped growing. Years later, as a young adult, Giorgio picked up that same book again, this time with sharper eyes and a deeper hunger. What he once read as fiction now felt like buried truth. That second reading wasn't just nostalgic, it was transformative. He described it as an awakening. While mainstream educators dismissed the book as pseudoscience, Giorgio saw it as a roadmap, a portal to mysteries that conventional historians refused to touch. From that point forward, everything in his life would trace back to that moment. This wasn't just a childhood phase. It was the ignition of a lifelong mission to challenge what we think we know about the past. While most believers in fringe science come from academic or scientific backgrounds, Giorgio Tsoukalos took a path that couldn't have been more unexpected. After finishing high school in Switzerland, Giorgio packed his bags and moved to the United States to pursue a degree, not in archaeology or anthropology, but in sports information and communication at Ithaca College. On the surface, it seemed like a far cry from ancient astronauts and extraterrestrial theories. He wasn't decoding ancient symbols or studying ruins. He was learning how to cover football games and manage public relations. And yet, those skills, writing, storytelling, capturing attention, would become the very tools that propelled him into global fame. While juggling his studies, Giorgio plunged headfirst into the world of bodybuilding. He wasn't just a hobbyist. He became a behind-the-scenes powerhouse, organizing major events like the Mr. Olympia competition, working logistics, handling promotions, and eventually founding his own bodybuilding promotion company. At its peak, he ran one of California's most high-profile competitions, the San Francisco Pro Grand Prix. The respect he earned in that world wasn't casual. Bodybuilding legends like Ronnie Coleman publicly acknowledged his impact. What he learned there, branding, spectacle, and media mastery, would prove vital once Giorgio turned his attention back to his first love, ancient mysteries. At just 20 years old, Giorgio co-founded a publication that would change his life, Legendary Times magazine. This wasn't a typical history journal. It was a one-man mission to legitimize the ancient astronaut theory. He didn't just write for it, he ran it. He was editor-in-chief, publisher, and public face. The magazine quickly gained notoriety as the only global publication solely focused on the possibility that extraterrestrials may have visited Earth in ancient times. While academics rolled their eyes, Giorgio pushed forward. He wrote in plain language, framed fringe theories with curiosity, and avoided the dense academic tone that alienated most people from the topic. For years, this magazine was his secret weapon, circulating just enough to create a following, but niche enough to avoid heavy academic backlash. But there was more to Giorgio's life than just magazines and muscle. For nearly a decade, he lived a double life, promoting bodybuilding shows by day, exploring alien origins by night. It was a strange pairing, but it worked. Few realized that behind the curtain of tanned athletes and sculpted physiques was a man who believed that humanity's greatest monuments may have been crafted with help from another world. That hidden duality, half promoter, half believer, would soon thrust him into a world that neither academia nor fitness ever saw coming: television. In the world of televised experts and polished PhDs, Giorgio Tsoukalos stood out for all the wrong reasons. Or, so his critics thought. He had no degree in archaeology, no fieldwork in Egypt, and no published academic papers. But what he did have was charisma, presence, and an uncanny ability to make even the wildest theories sound like breaking news. It all began in the early 2000s, when producers from a niche documentary series called In Search Of gave Giorgio his first shot on screen. They introduced him as an Egyptologist, glossing over the fact that he had never actually trained in the field. For many, that would have sparked immediate backlash. But Giorgio played the part so convincingly, viewers didn't question it. And more importantly, he left an impression. From that moment forward, Giorgio mastered the art of looking like an expert, not by deception, but by delivery. He spoke with the kind of bold certainty that television loves. In the years that followed, he became a go-to talking head for cable documentaries with names like Is It Real? And Is There a Stargate? These weren't mainstream hits, but they served a purpose. They tested the waters. Producers watched to see how audiences reacted to Giorgio's blend of speculation and storytelling. And time after time, he proved he could hold a viewer's attention. Between 2002 and 2007, Giorgio built a presence across History Channel, Sci-Fi, Travel Channel, and even National Geographic, slowly transitioning from fringe contributor to familiar face. He wasn't just repeating conspiracy theories. He was making them accessible, digestible, and, above all, entertaining. The viewers didn't care if he had a doctorate. They cared that he made them wonder. What if the ancient gods were aliens? What if the pyramids weren't built by humans alone? Giorgio knew exactly how to ask the questions that no one else on TV dared to pose. And behind the scenes, his magazine Legendary Times kept growing. It became the anchor that gave him legitimacy in the eyes of fans. While academics dismissed him, readers and viewers embraced him. He wasn't waiting for the university stamp of approval. He was building a following, a platform, and soon, a movement. The transition from bodybuilding promoter to alien theorist seemed absurd to some. But Giorgio wasn't chasing logic. He was chasing belief. And what came next would take that belief and turn it into a global phenomenon. It was 2009 when everything changed. The History Channel launched a bold new series titled Ancient Aliens. And at its center wasn't a credentialed historian or Ivy League professor. It was Giorgio A. Tsoukalos, the wild-haired theorist who had spent years in the margins of both science and media. His voice was confident, his questions were outrageous, and his look, spiked hair, intense eyes, hands in mid-gesture, became impossible to forget. At first, the show seemed like a gamble. Could a fringe theory really carry a mainstream series? But what followed was nothing short of a media explosion. Viewers were hooked. Ancient Aliens didn't just speculate, it mesmerized. Each episode wove together myths, monuments, and mysteries, suggesting that extraterrestrial forces may have guided ancient civilizations. From the pyramids of Egypt to the stone faces of Easter Island, no corner of history was safe from scrutiny. Giorgio became the face and voice of it all, appearing in every episode, asking the questions no one else would ask. And whether you believed in the theory or not, one thing was undeniable. The man knew how to captivate. Over the years, Ancient Aliens aired more than 200 episodes across 20-plus seasons, making it one of History Channel's longest-running and most debated programs. The show became a cultural lightning rod. Critics from universities and scientific journals condemned it as pseudoscience, accusing it of warping public understanding of history. But Giorgio never flinched. To him, the criticism was proof that he was pushing boundaries the establishment wanted to keep shut. He welcomed the outrage because it meant people were paying attention. And as the show's reach grew, so did Giorgio's platform. He became a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM, a late-night radio juggernaut with millions of listeners hungry for the unusual. There, his theories found fertile ground among insomniacs, believers, and skeptics alike. He didn't just pose ideas, he created conversations. And for a growing fan base, Giorgio wasn't just a TV host. He was a prophet of possibility. But perhaps the biggest key to the show's success wasn't just Giorgio's theories. It was his transformation of those ideas into compelling, visual stories. He didn't just talk about alien contact, he dramatized it. He took complex texts and ancient myths and translated them into bold, simple, captivating questions. What if gods were aliens? What if history isn't what we've been taught? Giorgio didn't offer answers. He offered wonder. And in a media landscape saturated with certainty. That wonder turned out to be worth millions. By 2010, Giorgio A. Tsoukalos had already cemented his place as the eccentric heart of ancient aliens. But no one, not even Giorgio himself, could have predicted what would happen next. One freeze frame from the show, one outrageous theory, and one perfectly misunderstood line turned him from a cable TV oddity into a full-blown internet legend. It all started on the anonymous image board 4chan, where users began sharing a screenshot of Giorgio mid-sentence, wide-eyed, mid-gesture, and unmistakably Giorgio. The caption, "I'm not saying it was aliens, but it was aliens." The irony? He never actually said those exact words, but that didn't matter. The meme was born, and it would soon take over the internet. What made it viral was its versatility. The image could be used to explain anything bizarre, from missing homework to historical mysteries to conspiracy theories. Giorgio's wild hair and intense expression became a punchline in every corner of digital culture, from Reddit to Tumblr to Facebook. Within months, the meme was everywhere, catapulting Giorgio into a level of fame few TV historians or even theorists ever experience. The line became a shorthand for absurd yet oddly compelling speculation. And instead of rejecting the mockery, Giorgio leaned into it. In interviews, he expressed genuine gratitude. In a 2015 Reddit AMA, he called it an honor to be part of internet culture. While many public figures might have been offended, Giorgio saw it differently. The meme didn't diminish his work, it amplified it. Suddenly, millions of people who had never watched Ancient Aliens knew his face. They might have been laughing, but they were also listening. And that, for Giorgio, was a win. The meme turned him into something rare, a bridge between fringe theory and pop culture. His image was now printed on t-shirts, coffee mugs, and Halloween costumes. He wasn't just a theorist, he was an icon. Appearances on mainstream platforms skyrocketed. Social media embraced him not as a scientist, but as a cultural artifact in his own right. And his fame, born from a moment of internet humor, became a marketing force behind the very show that started it all. Rather than being trapped by the joke, Giorgio became larger than it. While critics scoffed and the internet poked fun, he continued to spread the same message. What if we've misunderstood our history? What if we've ignored the impossible? The meme, instead of ending his credibility, became the vehicle that expanded it. And Giorgio knew exactly how to ride the wave. As the meme solidified Giorgio A. Tsoukalos as a household name, he did something few internet sensations ever manage. He turned that viral fame into a thriving real-world empire. In 2024, Giorgio launched Ancient Aliens Live, a full-scale touring show that brought the mystique of extraterrestrial theory directly to theaters across America. This wasn't just another fan convention. It was a highly choreographed experience featuring some of the biggest names in the ancient astronaut world, including David Childress, William Henry, and Nick Pope. Cities like Chicago, New York, and San Diego saw venues packed with believers, skeptics, and curious newcomers, some paying over $80 for a ticket. Others splurging on VIP photo ops just to stand beside the mythic man with the iconic hair. But make no mistake, this was more than fan service. It was business. Giorgio and his team knew their audience and catered to them with precision. Fans weren't just buying theories, they were buying access to personalities, to live speculation, and to the intoxicating idea that maybe, just maybe, human history holds secrets too enormous for textbooks. The format mixed storytelling, debate, and a healthy dose of spectacle. One rule became clear early on: no autographs. Not because the team was aloof, but because crowd control became impossible after shows. Lines stretched around the block. Giorgio was no longer just a presenter, he was a headliner, and it didn't stop at the US border. Giorgio became a global speaker, commanding five-figure fees at conferences from Mexico to Japan, often appearing in auditoriums packed with thousands. These weren't just fringe gatherings. At AlienCon 2019 in Los Angeles, over 10,000 people showed up. In 2022, He stood toe-to-toe with professors at the Oxford Union, defending his theories before one of the world's oldest debating societies. Many scoffed. Giorgio smiled. He wasn't trying to win over scholars. He was winning over the world. Beyond the stage, Giorgio expanded his reach with ancient site tours, personally guiding groups through Pumapunku, Göbekli Tepe, and Tiwanaku. These were the very locations he claimed held alien secrets, and now fans could walk them by his side. His fans weren't just watching a show, they were living a narrative, with Giorgio as their guide. Behind all the media frenzy, the real genius of Giorgio's brand was this: he turned ancient mystery into immersive experience. He monetized belief without ever claiming to have all the answers. He offered questions, wonder, and theatrical delivery, and in an age drowning in certainty, that made him a sensation. Wherever he went, he left crowds wondering not just what happened in the past, but whether they were standing in the presence of someone who truly knew more than he was saying. For Giorgio A. Tsoukalos, public scrutiny was nothing new. Critics lined up to call his theories nonsense, pseudo-history, even dangerous. But among the endless academic takedowns and media mockery, one voice stood out, and it wasn't just another scholar. It was Jason Colavito, a young journalism student from Giorgio's own alma mater, Ithaca College. Their paths crossed in 2002 during what was supposed to be a routine interview. But instead of a polite conversation, what unfolded was the beginning of a long, bitter, and highly personal feud that would spill into emails, conferences, and even ancient aliens itself. According to Colavito, the tension started when he asked Giorgio to back up some of his more extreme claims. Giorgio, who usually handled skepticism with ease, reportedly lost his patience. What was supposed to be a Q&A turned into a verbal standoff. And it didn't end there. The two exchanged heated messages for months. Colavito accused Giorgio of misleading the public. Giorgio, in turn, accused Colavito of being a pawn for an establishment desperate to silence uncomfortable truths. Then, things took an even darker turn. Giorgio allegedly blocked Colavito's attempts to contact Eric von Däniken, the very author who had inspired Giorgio's career. For Giorgio, Colavito wasn't just a nuisance, he was a threat. Years later, when Ancient Aliens became a cultural powerhouse, Giorgio used the show's platform to fire back. In one episode, producers flashed Colavito's name across the screen, dramatically, styled and underscored by ominous music. It was a not-so-subtle message. This is the man standing in the way of the truth. It wasn't just unusual, it was personal. For a program that rarely mentioned specific detractors by name, this was an extraordinary move. Giorgio was sending a clear signal. He wasn't afraid of his enemies. He would confront them head-on, and on national television. The feud by then had escalated far beyond academic disagreement. It had become symbolic. On one side stood Colavito, representing traditional journalism and academic rigor. On the other stood Giorgio, the outsider-turned-icon, challenging the gatekeepers with unrelenting certainty. To some, Giorgio's actions were petty. To his fans, they were heroic. He wasn't just defending his ideas, he was fighting for the right to ask impossible questions. What this feud revealed wasn't just Giorgio's combative edge. It showed how deeply he believed in his mission. He wasn't playing a character. He genuinely saw himself as a truth teller in a world of suppression. And if that meant making enemies, so be it. Giorgio's war with Colavito wasn't about ego. It was about control of the narrative. And in that battle, Giorgio made it clear he'd rather be the controversial voice that gets mocked than the silent one that gets forgotten. While Giorgio A. Tsoukalos may be one of the most recognizable figures in modern pop culture, thanks to his signature hair, bold theories, and viral memes, what's truly remarkable is how little the public knows about the man behind the camera. Despite decades in the spotlight, Giorgio has managed to keep his personal life almost entirely hidden. There are no tabloid scandals, no explosive social media rants, and almost no interviews that drift beyond his theories. It's a striking contrast to his public persona, loud, theatrical, and impossible to ignore. In real life, Giorgio is intensely private by choice. He married Crick Spiel on March 10, 2013, a talented glass artist from Florida with a background in somatic therapy and fine arts. While Giorgio was traveling the globe to investigate alien landing sites and ancient ruins, Crix remained behind, quietly running her glass art business and sharing her creations on Etsy. They live together in Los Angeles, but their relationship rarely makes headlines. No splashy red carpets, no public displays of drama, just two people seemingly living a life of quiet affection beneath the noise of international fame. Giorgio often wears jewelry made by Cricks during his TV appearances, an understated tribute to his wife seen by millions, though rarely noticed. Their home, according to those few who've seen it, is a reflection of Giorgio's double life. One room displays ancient artifacts, UFO models, and shelves stacked with books about unexplained history. The other showcases trophies, posters, and memorabilia from his earlier career in bodybuilding promotion. It's a split portrait, the mythmaker and the event planner, the believer and the businessman. The contrast is not a contradiction. It's who Giorgio is. Surprisingly, he has never publicly shared details about having children, and little is known about his extended family. He speaks rarely of his childhood, beyond the formative gift from his grandmother that introduced him to chariots of the gods. In an era where celebrities live-stream their breakfast and argue with followers online, Giorgio has resisted the pull of overexposure. He understands the value of mystery, not just in ancient history, but in his own story. This privacy isn't accidental. It's part of a larger strategy. Giorgio wants the focus to remain on his mission, challenging how we view the past, rethinking the impossible, and entertaining the thought that maybe, just maybe, we're not alone. By keeping his personal life shielded, he maintains the allure of someone who knows something the rest of us don't. Someone who's been chasing answers his entire life and refuses to be distracted from the hunt. In a way, Giorgio Tsoukalos lives like the very civilizations he studies, larger than life in myth, but grounded in mystery. A man whose ideas are on billboards, memes, and global stages, while his real-world heart beats in quiet rooms far from the spotlight. In a world where fame often fades as fast as it arrives, Giorgio A. Tsoukalos remains a rare anomaly. He didn't rise through academic institutions. He didn't have the backing of elite journals or mainstream historians. Instead, he built an empire on curiosity, charisma, and controversy, and turned a fringe theory into a global conversation. From a childhood fascination with ancient gods to founding a one-of-a-kind magazine, from bodybuilding competitions to the halls of Oxford, from being mocked in memes to being cheered in sold-out theaters, Giorgio's story is as improbable as the theories he promotes. And yet, here we are, still watching, still questioning, still asking, what if he's right? Giorgio A. Tsoukalos turned doubt into dialogue. He made it okay to question the official story, to wonder if the unexplained was more than myth. He didn't just popularize the ancient astronaut theory, he made it feel possible. And whether you believe in aliens or not, you can't ignore what he achieved. He turned a passion project into a global brand, a meme into a movement, and a question into a career. So the next time you see a mysterious ruin, hear about an ancient miracle, or look up at the stars, ask yourself, what if history isn't what we think it is? What if the impossible was true all along? Now we want to hear from you. Do you think Giorgio Tsoukalos is a visionary rewriting history, or just a master storyteller with great hair? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more wild theories, hidden truths, and unforgettable stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Because whether it's ancient monuments or modern myths, we're just getting started.